This is Wadu TV. Truth and integrity.
Emma munyina kwaba emfambra body TV so na Ofori Atta asemi wedi echi when say a day before special prosecutor Babeka say we declare wanted no yes asra for a military phobi ekọ ni fie ho ekoye inspection omubura Ofori Atta fie ho na omukoma koton de ba yem say okumkoton krofo bi ho CCTV camera e capture mu nyina de omukoye ofie wo nyina ka omude koye nyina na sojafo ne wo mu nyina na Paul Adom-Otchere fire their phone wa fire papa nti OSP wonyina yie pa cases bi a na wo ho a yese omo ye looters yesusu say allegedly omo ye looters mabo manyika ibetimi agisika ne bi dia bo man no NDC by omo release these cases ni nyina omo chese omo nto aso bio eno ho asema kwa kwesisen Paul Adom-Otchere kofa ba kro ya bosom na wodwudwe mawuregure ma papa ma bibi mu tokro bi mu busua yonkotebe.
The story. So when Kissi Agyabeng came out, when the raid occurred, we came here and said that Kissi Agyabeng had been responsible for the raid. In the press conference the next day, he said he had not been responsible for the raid. He doesn't know anything about the raid. But yes, he's been in engagement with Ofori Atta. And Richard Jakpa here is been confirmed by Majority Leader, then Leader of Parliament, Apagya, as being the one in the video. We have just edited the videos better. We're going to show it to you in greater detail just a minute. But he said Ofori Atta is a fugitive from justice. You know, these days the world has become global, and Ofori Atta is Ghana's former Minister of Finance, and he's been abroad. Even when Ofori Atta was minister, he spent quite a bit of time abroad on health ground. And look at what the BBC said. Ghana's former finance minister, Ofori Atta, has been declared a fugitive by prosecutors over his alleged involvement in multiple corruption cases when he was in government. Ofori Atta had left Ghana to evade investigations. This is the BBC. Ofori Atta had left Ghana to evade investigations, and all necessary steps will have been taken to bring him back. Special prosecutor Kissi Agyabeng said. Ofori Atta had been accused of causing financial losses to the state, including over a controversial national cathedral, which remains a hole in the ground despite the alleged spending of $58 million, which is 46 million pounds of government money. Ofori Atta has not commented on the allegations. According to Agyabeng, the ex-minister's lawyer said he was out of the country for medical reasons. Agyabeng told a press conference that Ofori Atta, 66, failed to attend an interview with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, despite being told that he was a suspect. I mean, this is where the problem is. Ofori Atta is not a fugitive from justice. It's not about Ofori Atta, viewers. It's not about Ofori Atta. It's about Ghana, the government of Ghana, the people of Ghana, the Black Stars, anybody who is connected to Ghana. The Black Stars being a football brand that also represents Ghana. It's about the flag. It's about this. It's not about Ofori Atta. A man has been Minister of Finance for your country, and then the next thing they hear is a fugitive from justice. It tells on your country. Have you ever heard America saying that the former Federal Reserve guy is corrupt, and that he's stolen money, and that he's dug a cathedral hole? Whether a cathedral hole has been dug or not, it is our hole. It is our cathedral. It's our gain or it's our loss. It is necessary that our public officials begin. That's why I like my producer playing the tape of Stephen Amwa. Just those of you who have been watching on social media, Stephen Amwa talking about it. It is very important that we understand that when we make these pronouncements internationally, it affects us. You know, I believe Kissi Agyabeng will do a good job on this one, but these are the things we need to check. And you cannot also blame Kissi Agyabeng too much in this matter, but you can blame him, but you can't blame him. Why can't you blame him? Because the pressure on him to show what he's doing, given the exchange of letters he had, it looks like the exchange of letters he had with the Ofori Atta lawyers was not that great. But there's a letter that I'll show you. Producer, look for it. Ofori Atta here wrote to the current chief of staff, Julius Debra, that he's traveling. And that if for any reason there's anything, they should contact him. I'll show you that letter in a minute. Ken Ofori Atta wrote to Julius Deborah that he was traveling because you are former finance minister who will need you. You can never be former finance minister and won't need you. If you are former something, we may not need you. But former finance minister, former attorney general, former minister for energy in a developing country after the transition, they will still need you. They will come to you and say, finance minister, the IMF is, especially when we're in the middle of an IMF negotiation, the IMF is saying this and that, the IMF is saying that, what is it? So Ofori Atta was aware that he'll be needed. Producer, if you can find that letter for me, please. The letter that he wrote to Julius Deborah, telling Mr. Deborah, the new chief of staff, that I'm going away, but if you need me, I'm available. Because he knows that he'll be needed. Even with the IMF negotiation, it should have been useful for the Ghanaian team that met the IMF to include Ofori Atta and Mohamed Amin Adam. It would have been very useful. We remember what happened with Itlos, didn't we? When Gloria Kufu was fighting Itlos, she went with those who she had, her predecessors. They were part of the Itlos. So, Kissi Agyabeng, if you can't find that, let me know so I move on the conversation. Okay, but it's on my phone. I'll get it for them later in the show. But Ken Ofori Atta, let this go on record, that Ken Ofori Atta had written to Julius Deborah that he was leaving the jurisdiction. Okay, now let's have Kissi Agyabeng and Richard Jakpa back, and then we talk about the rest of the stories. We talk about the rest of the stories. So we are going to focus. Kissi Agyabeng says that he was not responsible for the raid that was taken by led by Richard Jakpa, and we know that is correct. Okay, so let's. What do we have here? Mahama Mayariga apologizes to Ken Ofori Atta for security raid at his residence. Yes, in this apology rendered by Mahama Mayariga earlier today, he apologized for the security raid at Ken Ofori Atta's residence. He didn't quite say anything about Ken Ofori Atta being a fugitive from justice, but he also said that the Richard Jakpa leading the event will not happen again. This is what I'm going to do, viewers. I'm going to take text messages now, but over the text messages, you will be seeing the Richard Jakpa video. So, producer, I get it correct. Show them the Richard Jakpa, the entrance, the long video. Show them that whilst they take the text message, and by the time they come, it will be ready. Yes, so this is why we think that Kissi shouldn't have said what he said. This is Black's Law Dictionary definition: fugitive from justice. A person who, having committed a crime, flees from having committed a crime. What is a crime? A crime is what the law says. When the law says you have committed a crime, that is when a text can say you have committed a crime. Sedina Tamaklo is the fugitive from justice. I've seen people putting her photograph on social media. She has been convicted by a court. She's in America that she will not come. OSP, I don't know whether you've seen Sedina Tamaklo, but you should have a look at that. It says, a person who having committed a crime flees from justice of court where crime was committed or departs from his usual place of abode and conceals himself within the district. A person who having committed or being charged with a crime in one state has left his jurisdiction and is found within territory of another state when it is sought to subject himself to criminal processes. Ken Ofori Atta cannot be called a fugitive. So Kissi, please, don't say that. Let me see the photograph of my three gentlemen. I'm going on to the Richard Jakpa story, but I'd like you to see the entire video whilst I get you some aspects, particular aspects of the video. This is Richard Jakpa here. Kissi Agyabeng says he was not responsible for the raid that Jakpa covered. One thing Kissi said is that the raid may have been staged, and we now know that if it was staged by some people somewhere. Mahama Mayariga now says that they apologized for it, and so government is saying, this is the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, and the matter came on the floor of Parliament. Government is saying through Mahama Mayariga that they did not send Richard Jakpa to go to Ken Ofori Atta's house. The story shouldn't end there. Who sent Richard Jakpa to go there? Let's take our text messages. Whilst, as soon as the messages start, let's start rolling the video, and then by the time we come back, we have the specifics of the video that we want them to see, and then we swing the story over to the Attorney General with his maiden press conference, a very interesting one about the reasons why he has dropped some of the cases. That's a big story tonight coming up. So let's start text messages. Who do we do first? Fatih will tell us the first message. Happy Valentine.
Nice. So, coming from Nana Ekwuamo, he says Ghana has not benefited from this special prosecutor. All he knows is to organize press conferences and be speaking big grammar as if that is what Ghanaians will eat. He is just wasting our resources. Now, Samuel Fariba says, after hearing the OSP's press conferences, I could conclude emphatically that Kissi Agyabeng is frustrated for not making any necessary arrest. As regards to such, he wants to use Honorable Ken Ofori Atta as a scapegoat to clear his shame. No matter what he does, he's got 100%. Coming from Ajawuddin Nana Kofi says, it's quite unfortunate and unpatriotic to read on social media that you allegedly stated Ofori Atta must carry his own cross. If indeed you made such comments, I find them deeply troubling. Ofori Atta, like any other individual, may have his flaws, and you may have personal reasons for disliking him. However, on the matter of the Office of the Special Prosecutor seemingly using him to revive its dwindling credibility, denigrating the image of a former finance minister through what appears to be witch hunting and selective justice should be of national concern. Even criminals caught at crime scenes are entitled to respect for their human rights. How much more someone who has been summoned for an investigation and whose legal representatives have cooperated with the OSP. Today it is Ofori Atta, tomorrow it could be one of us. As a member of parliament and a representative of the NPP during these trying times for a senior patriot, the least expected of you is the kind of sentiment attributed to you on social media. We live in a country where individuals who serve selflessly are often degraded, reduced to nothing and branded as criminals due to partisan politics. This trend must stop. Now, Ahmed Tijani says, good evening, Paul. I'm not a lawyer, but I find it strange when someone can be declared a fugitive when charges have not been pressed against him. The OSP's image seems more of an emotional and sensational populist rather than a professional. His outlook is a disgrace to the law profession. Nana also says Paul Jakpa sacked the occupants from the house and he and his men allegedly searched Ken's house. They can bag or plant some devices there. And lastly, coming from Francis Bine says, we are no longer in the military rule. The police require a warrant to enter your home to investigate a crime that they believe was committed. They may only enter your house to prevent a crime that they believe may be imminent. For example, if they hear someone is screaming or get a tip that someone is being held against their will.
Okay, from Ato Addison, he says, Paul, I feel traumatized after watching the video. This can't be the democracy that we fought for as a country. Sandra Banafo says, I want to ask the OSP that, assuming Ofori Atta comes to Ghana now, can the OSP arrest him to put him into jail straight away? If not, why is the OSP behaving like he's a judge and the court in its own? He is behaving childish. From Pino, he says, whether you like it or not, Ofori Atta is a fugitive. From Samuel Fosuba, he says, Happy Valentine's Day, Paul, and your lovely girls. I am watching the program with some Italian friends. They are worried and seeing the military squad invading the residency of the former finance minister being armed. They asked me if Ghana is a military regime or a democracy. I am extremely disappointed and ashamed of such actions. The international communities are watching us. Such operations must be seized immediately. From Nana Owusu, says Paul, remember during the Ato Forson's trial, Jakpa told the whole nation that he was not a member of the NDC. We all know now that he was lying about it. From Anthony Ayakwa, he says, Ghana is not safe. Without a warrant, an ex-military man can just walk into anyone's home wielding a weapon. At this rate, democracy is under threat. From Haruna, he says, the OSP has really demonstrated his incompetence and incapability as managing that office and must be kicked out at once. How can you go public on a person when you are yet to formally charge them or invite them in for questioning? In the case of Mustafa, I can say nothing but is much ado about nothing. Indeed, Ken was right in his description of that guy. From Shadrach, he says, this guy needs to be arrested. We are joking with a democracy. How can you march people out of their family house? Kofi Nat says, John Mahama, the clearing agent of Ghana. From Michael Ado, he says, this is disheartening. Junior Akbar says, more years to come and Ghana will be the most interesting country in West Africa. Ebenezer says, when at that time, the dawn of Ghana politics vehemently opposed to the establishment of the OSP, we saw the posture of the then government. Time and tide has revealed that the office is useless. Let's scrap it. And lastly, from Don Kwesi Pedro, he says, did they have a warrant? Over to you, Paul.
Well, we are now moving to the next story, but we have to talk about Kissi Agyabeng a little bit. So, a lot of people have called me about what are you going to say about Kissi Agyabeng? Let's give him the chance to do the right thing. Let's give him the chance to do the right thing. So, not much to say now. Let's give Kissi the chance to do the right thing. He's engaging with not just finance minister, he's engaging with other people, other corruption issues. So, let's give him the chance to do the right thing. So long as he says he wasn't responsible for this one. Because if he had been responsible for this one, that would have been a big story. But he's already been engaging with Mr. Ofori Atta and his lawyers. We just tell him that you can't call a Ghanaian former foreign minister, whether it's Jakpa, whether it's Ofori Atta, whether it's Kissi Agyabeng. No Ghanaian person who holds state authority should describe any such person at the exit of their office as a fugitive from justice. If you do that, you may think you're attacking him, but you're attacking Ghana. Your finance ministers finish, they run away with money, and then you are looking for them, they can't find them. Why should I come and put my $60 million in your country? Then when I deal with the finance minister, when he's gone, he will steal the money, and then you will be looking for him, you can't find him. How do I get my money? We can't do that. We cannot do that. Kissi Agyabeng. So that's the part that I don't like. They're calling names of people. Waits for the High Court to finish, and the High Court says he's guilty of a crime, if at all, if there's any High Court process. But if you say Ofori Atta, you see, once a person occupies, the reason why we call him honorable and we pay him and we give him a car like we give to all the MPs is because once he takes that oath as finance minister, he doesn't represent himself anymore. You can beat him up, but he's your finance minister. He's your finance minister when he's in Ghana. He's your finance minister when he's abroad. He carries the image. If people want to know about Ghana, they will not ask me. If I arrive at what airport? Heathrow Airport, they won't ask me that, Mr. Adom-Otchere, we hear that Cocoa has done. No, they won't ask me. But if the finance minister of Ghana arrives, they'll ask him. So he occupies a position where he represents everybody. He doesn't represent everybody only when he's finance minister. He represents everybody after he's finance minister. Kissi Agyaben's exploits in Harvard counted as credits to Ghana. It was very, very important. His long teaching at Harvard and all of that counted as credit to Ghana. Whatever Ofori Atta does from now counts as credit to Ghana. The governor of the central bank, the new one, the new finance minister, should be able to call Ken Ofori Atta and say that, Chief, we have an IMF meeting in New York. You are in Minnesota. Can you come and join us? I mean, let them just see that we are talking together. It will help. And it will help. When you come back, you can do the NDC and MPP politics. Everyone does it. America does it. Everyone does it. But let's be careful because we're a nascent democracy. We're a small country. We're growing. Whatever it is, if I call people here now and say that, give me 5 wrongs of Ofori Atta, they may be able to say it. If I call somebody and say, give me 100 wrongs of Jakpa, they may be able to say it. Even now, Atuforsen has been there for how many months? 1 month. If I call somebody and say, give me 5 wrongs of Atuforsen, they might be able to say something. It may all be legitimate, but it doesn't mean that a special prosecutor should call a finance minister fugitive from justice. It is completely wrong, and we condemn that in no uncertain terms. Beyond that, let's leave Kissi Agyabeng to do his work. Hopefully, he will do a good job. Now, I have this photograph for you that I want us to assess. The reason why I'm on this story is that we probably will formulate an RTI question for the Minister for Defense, because we cannot have a Minister for Defense in Dr. Manibo, my intelligent man, and then you have let soldiers to go and harass a taxpayer, and you tell me that it is national security, you are not part of it. There's no Minister for National Security as it is. So the National Security Coordinator must be reporting to a minister. He's reporting either to the Minister for Interior or to the Minister for Defense, or both. Both the Minister for Interior and the Minister for Defense under the Constitution are part of the National Security Council. How can a Minister for Defense look at a situation like that and say that it will change? I read something from Manibo this morning, and I was quite disappointed. These are soldiers. They are under the Ghana Armed Forces, paid by the taxpayer. And then this is Richard Jakpa here, who is also a former soldier, who has been released from the armed forces that he is unfit in 2014, when John Mahama was president. In 2014, Jakpa was released. And then we find this video where Richard Jakpa, who has been told, all of us have been told, that the armed forces themselves decided that we have to release this young man because he's unfit. Years later, he in a civilian uniform is coming and leading a section of, I said a platoon earlier, I think it's a section, it's lower than a platoon. He's leading a section of men to come into the former finance minister's house, invading the privacy of the finance minister. Whether they planted something there, we don't know. And then he took a gun. So when the thing started, this is Richard Jakpa in this video. Let me open it up a bit for viewers to see. Can I open it? Oh, it's actually very full of the screen. So this is Richard Jakpa here, demanding or requesting a gun from this soldier. Let's look at the next photograph. Do we have a next photograph? Okay, maybe they'll put it on. Let's look at the next photograph. It will come. Okay, now in the second photograph, you will see that the man has handed over something to him. So you can see the soldier man has handed something over. So this is a military man paid for by the taxpayer. He's wielding a gun which belongs to the taxpayer. He hands over that gun to Richard Jakpa, who is not a member of the Ghana Armed Forces. We have not been told that he has occupied any position at the national security. But here he is, somebody that we were told that is unfit to be a member of the armed forces is now leading armed forces soldiers into the house of a political opponent of the ruling government. How does that sound? A person who we have been told by a letter signed by General Ahiaglo under the presidency of John Mahama that this said Captain Richard Jakpa is unfit to be a member of the armed forces. And then years later, that's 2014, 2025, said Richard Jakpa, under John Mahama's new administration, find himself leading soldiers to the house of a political opponent. What does he do? He's collecting a gun before he goes into Ken Ofori Atta's house. Richard Jakpa was unaware that Ken Ofori Atta was not there. I'm sure he was unaware. So he probably thought he was there. What is the point about collecting a gun? Are the Ghanaian media, civil society, everybody going to leave this story to go with Omanebo Ama smiling and saying that the soldiers who came from went to Ken Ofori Atta's house, they are members of national security. I don't have any control over them. Yeah, we can all laugh at it because it's Ken Ofori Atta. But the chickens will come home to roost if this is how we build our democracy. Look at the photograph. Now, Richard Jakpa has taken a gun from the military man. He's collected a pistol. This pistol belongs to the taxpayer because it was with the soldier. If it was for Richard Jakpa and he left it in the car and told the soldier that, bring back my gun, what is the origin of the gun? Majority Leader in Parliament, Mahama Mayariga, is telling Parliament tonight that the government did not sanction Richard Jakpa and that he apologizes for it and that it will not happen again. Is that where we leave the matter? Government did not sanction. Who sanctioned it? We have voted for one government. We don't want two governments. We don't want three governments. We have voted for a president, a vice president, a defense minister. And there are people who can give instructions to national security. And there are not many. The people who can give instructions to national security are not many. President can do that. Vice president on behalf of the president. Minister for defense can do that. Interior minister can do that. National security coordinator can do that. Which of these high-profile state officials organize the taxpayer to be led by a man that we have been told is not fit to lead? I don't know. 27 minutes past the top of that. Let's get to Dominica Aini's stories. We'll leave this for now. We'll get to Dominica Aini. All right. So turn your text messages on this one. Tell us what you think about it and how you see this story. Good evening, my lecturer. How are you? This is Dr. Dominica Aini. Dominica Aini is a friend of this show because in 2021, when the NDC were very unhappy with us, he graciously accepted to be interviewed here on the election petition in which he was participating. He had some difficulties in those days that Eni Eboa, the learned Chief Justice of the day, also reported him to the General Legal Counsel, but that's not the story for tonight. Dominica Aini has come forward to respond to calls about the Attorney General's decision to enter Nole Prosequa. The very low point of Dominica Aini's conversation yesterday was taking out time to launch a major attack on his predecessor. I was surprised. And it hurts me for something I'm going to say, which is not known to many Ghanaians. Back in the day, you know that Godfrey Dami, I used to go to his office all the time, and I've known him for that long. So when he was doing one of the cases, I won't say which one, and then he was looking at his document. So, I mean, I was just eavesdropping on his conversation with his bosses and his staff and looking at it. I said, but what are you trying to do? He says, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I said, but why won't you deal with this guy? Because the document you are showing me shows. He said, no, I've learned something very important. The guy is my predecessor, and I'm occupying the position that he occupied. I have to give it respect. So I have called him, and he has supplied the information. So I'll leave it there. I don't want to do that. I said, oh, really? He said, no, my predecessor, I have to give him a lot of respect because he's my predecessor. And I said, okay. I said, why do you learn this? Oh, I've heard many people, Akufo-Addo talks about it. Many people say, when you come into office, your predecessor. This is Godfrey Dami who told me this. He was doing something about the predecessor. The predecessor in question was Dominica Aini. He was Godfrey Dami's predecessor as Deputy Attorney General. And a matter had arisen, and Godfrey Dami told me that he doesn't want to do anything about his. So he has called him. He said it, that he has called him and discussed with him. And he has submitted the documents, and that's the end of the matter. Because as far as he's concerned, he was his predecessor. So when I heard the words of Dominic Ayini about Godfrey Dame, I was like, wow. I mean, I know that in political showboating and in political sparring on Good Morning Ghana, Good Evening Ghana, on Obi's program, Ekosi saying, politicians do that. So I've heard Tamaklo mention Godfrey Dame, talk about him, and I think all of that is allowed. Godfrey Dame himself laughs about it. But when the learned Attorney General takes office and holds his maiden press conference and calls his predecessor the names that he did, to the point where the journalists ask him that you have called your predecessor all these names, are you going to take an action on it? And he says, I will keep that to myself. But in terms of publicizing the material, and that's the word I want to use, publicizing the material against Godfrey Dame, he had no hesitation in doing that. He did that without any hesitation. When he was asked that, given all what you have said, are you going to pursue? I mean, for the journalist to ask the Attorney General that, for the journalist to suspect that the Attorney General may be willing to press charges against his predecessor, that should suggest to you viewers, if you didn't hear the press conference, the kinds of words he used against Godfrey Dame. That's why the journalist said, are you going to press some charges against him because of the words he used? And he said, I'll keep that to myself. Anyway, good evening, sir, once again. Let's get to his press conference now, where he started by explaining, he gave, I think, 3 reasons why he has decided to discontinue some of the cases. One of the early reasons he gave was that some of the cases involved, his law firm has something to do with it. Let's hear the Attorney General.
These cases were the Republic versus Kissi Agyabeng and another, and the Republic versus Ofosu Ampofo and another. This is because I was deeply involved as counsel in these 2 cases.
When Dominic Ayini taught me law at the Faculty of Law, one of the principles that he imbibed in us was that the position of the court is legal authority. Anything else is not legal authority. The opinion of counsel is urged on the court. And when the court agrees with counsel, the position becomes the position of the court. When we consider legal authorities, we are not considering the opinion of counsel. We are considering the decision of the court. The ratio decidendi. Some say ratio decidendi. The ratio decidendi is what is authority. The learned Attorney General tells us that one of the reasons why he dropped the cases of Atuforsen Somapotampofo was that his law firm had been hired to be defense counsel. And therefore, it was incongruous or morally reprehensible that him, having taken a view that these clients of his were innocent of the charges preferred against them by the Attorney General, that now that by a political twist of events, the election of 7 December 2024, the consequence of that election is that he now moves from defense counsel into Attorney General and therefore prosecutor of the same cases, that he's unable to continue because he had taken a view that these his clients of his were not guilty. That's what the Attorney General said. The Attorney General says his view that the clients were not guilty still stands as his opinion on the matter that the clients were not guilty. The court has yet to rule on that. So he has not allowed the court to rule. He has the power as Attorney General to enter a nolle prosequi, which is one way, or to simply discontinue the action, which is another way. And either works, and he has power to do both. So viewers, and those of us who are apologists of constitutional law and constitutional amendment, the Attorney General says, this is a precedent that the Attorney General is setting, that every Attorney General or most Attorney Generals will be drawn from private law firms. Let's go way back. Godfrey Bin, perhaps, is the only one who was not drawn from private law firms. Victor Usu was a private practicing lawyer. He became Attorney General. William Ofori Atta, practicing lawyer. Ian Moore, practicing lawyer. Joe Randolph, practicing lawyer. They were all doing cases. They became Attorney General. Akins in the PNDC era, practicing lawyer. He became Attorney General. This guy, Guzi Tano's father, Tano, practicing lawyer. He became Attorney General. Tony Forsen's father, practicing lawyer, Attorney General for the NDC. Martin Amidou, Martin Amidu, I think, came straight from the civil service. I don't know much about it, but he was Deputy Attorney General. His boss, Obeda Samoa, practicing lawyer, became Attorney General. Nana Akufo-Addo, practicing lawyer, became Attorney General. I'll tell you a story about Akufo-Addo on this matter. So it is a very interesting matter. I hope that the Democracy Hub people are watching. Because Dominic Ayine says that because he had taken a position in his private life that these cases didn't have merit, therefore, that when now he has been transitioned as Attorney General, his view that the cases do not have merit is the reason why he has taken the position that the authority given to him by the taxpayer will be applied coterminous with his legal opinion as a private lawyer. I think that's wrong. I think that cannot be correct. There could be several reasons why Dominic Ayine will stop the prosecution of Ofosu Ampofo and Ato Forsen, and he has the power to do so. In fact, he doesn't even need to tell us. So we are quite gracious, and I agree with Manasseh Azuri and all those people who are applauding Dominic Ayine for coming out to explain. It is facilitating democracy. But this reason that he gave, he must come back. One journalist asked him, and I'm going to play Johnny Hughes' questions, and I like the questions Johnny Hughes asked. One journalist asked him that, Attorney General, are you saying that all the cases that your law firm is... In fact, yesterday, I have to say that I was very pleased with the questions from the journalists. I mean, I was very, very happy with it. The quality was good. And I wasn't surprised when Dominic Ayine, in addressing them, said that some of you may be lawyers and some of you are law students. Now, he said that because of the same thing I felt. When the person is asking, they say, this guy must have some knowledge of law. Because the questions they were asking him were very solid. I was so proud of the journalist. And I'll show you some of it. He was asked that, are you saying that all the cases that your law firm is doing, you will drop it? And then he started smiling. He was smiling. He said, no, it's not going to be the case. I felt sad. The Attorney General has stood on legs. He has stood on the ground that is now shaking. The ground on which the Attorney General stood to make that claim was horribly shaken and disintegrated. Because how do you tell us that your law firm was taking the matter, and that your view of the matter then was that the prosecution was wrong? The prosecution has started. You have become Attorney General to meet it. You enter nolle prosequi, no problem. But your reason for entering nolle prosequi or discontinuing cannot be that because your law firm was the defense counsel, the position that you took then as a private lawyer is the position that you impose on the Republic under Article 88. It's an abuse of power. It's an abuse of Article 88. You can't do that. Once you become an Article 88 appointee, you are no longer Feli and Ayine law firm. You are the Minister for Justice and the Attorney General for the Republic. You are the principal legal advisor to the government. Nothing to do with your law firm and the opinions generated thereof. The opinions generated in your law firm are inconsequential to your work as an Attorney General. You can come and say that since I became Attorney General, yes, I was prosecuting them. I have taken the position that these prosecutions are unnecessary, and I close it. But this reason he gave, that in my law firm I was prosecuting, no, we don't need to know all that. We don't need to know all that. Dominic Ayine also said that the second reason why he dropped the charges was that there was a memorandum, very, very serious allegation he made. That there was a memorandum written by the attorneys at the Ministry of Justice. He said there was a memorandum written to Ofori Atta, the Attorney General. He says that the memorandum points to the fact that the Honorable Esiama, the current governor of the Bank of Ghana, and congratulations to him, by the way, the Honorable Esiama was not properly before the courts. That a memo had been generated from the state attorneys, and that's part of their work, to advise the Attorney General. Dominic Ayine alleges that Ofori Atta ignored the advice of the attorneys, that he has now come to see the memo, and that he's acted on that memo to drop the charges against Honorable Esiama. Fair, isn't it? Fair. Then one of the journalists, another clever question, said that, can you make the memo available? Then Dominic Ayine said, because the memo was penciled in by a civil servant who is still there, he is still deciding whether he should make that memo public or not. That's where the problem is. You see, they say, Nana Abrewas Abenkwine, when you start eating, you eat all. You don't taste it and go away. You have no basis, you have no pressure or compulsion to explain to us the decisions that you have made in respect of decisions to continue an action or a decision to enter nolle prosequi. You have no compulsion to tell us. But if you come to tell us that you have relied on a memo, then Mr. Attorney General, in the spirit of full disclosure, as Kudjeto Ablakwa likes to say, full disclosure. In the spirit of full disclosure, transparency, probity, and accountability, the key tenets of the NDC party, please release that memo. And I like what the journalist said. Can you show us the memo? Mr. Attorney General, you can block the name of the person who signed the memo. You can always do. They do that these days. It's very simple. Block the person who signed the memo and show us the memo written on this date. So and so and so. Dear Attorney General, written by Paul Adom-Otchere, Chief State Attorney. Mr. Attorney General, I do not think that the prosecution of Enwabo is sound. We beg you, Attorney General, in the interest of our democracy, we beg you. Even if you can't show it publicly, call some journalists you trust that we also trust, that come and see it. And then they can come and say, I have seen it. Because we trust them, we will believe it. Or blot out the name of the person who signed the memo and show the memo to us. Because you have said that this is the reason why you have entered nolle prosequi. You don't have to tell us, but you said that the memo had to do with monies that had been paid, and the attorney felt that the prosecution of Ichtema was inconsequential now because the reasons why he was being prosecuted have been achieved. 300 million lost on Bank of Ghana money in relation to Merchant Bank had been paid. 150 million potentially lost on Unibank had been paid. This memo went from the desk of the senior person in the Attorney General's office to the Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah Adame. You allege that Yeboah Adame ignored the memo. You have the memo. Attorney General, we beg you, find a way to let some people see it. I'll leave it there. Let's go to the next reason that was given by the learned Attorney General for some of the cases that he stopped. Once again, the Attorney General's reason has to be ventilated. The Attorney General's power to enter nolle prosequi is unfettered. It's a decision between him and the government. It's unfettered. Here is Attorney General telling us that he came to the conclusion of the nolle prosequi by engaging with the defense lawyers to ask them, I don't know what. But because the Attorney General takes a decision that I'm entering nolle prosequi, he ought not discuss with anyone. If he discusses with someone, he doesn't have to tell us. But once he tells us, and the reasons sound awkward, we are bound to run commentaries on this like I'm doing now. Chachu Chikata is not the Attorney General. Chachu Chikata is a respected lawyer and defense counsel for Jakpa. The letter Attorney General is telling us that in coming to the conclusion to discontinue, he had to engage with defense lawyers. That is so dangerous and smacks of a lot of suspicion. Was there a trade-off? What is the Attorney General having a conversation with defense lawyers? If I'm defense lawyer and you say, come, I want to enter nolle prosequi for your client. Hooray! Go ahead, Attorney General, do it for me. Attorney General says he spoke to the defense lawyers for what? For what? So now, the unfettered power of the Attorney General appears clearly limited by the opinions of Senior Chikata. Because he said he went to Mr. Chikata, and Chikata said, no, don't enter any nolle prosequi, I will pursue it. Chikata is not appointed by President Mahama as the Attorney General. Article 88 is clear. There shall be an Attorney General who shall be the principal legal advisor to the government. All prosecutions will come through him, and a suit against the government shall be instituted against the office of the Attorney General. All Attorney General's actions of legal all criminal prosecutions shall be instituted in the name of the Attorney General. All actions against government shall be instituted against the Attorney General. So the Attorney General is an important office holder appointed by the President, and Ghanaians all expect that the Attorney General will not be working under the instructions of other people who are not Attorney General, except the President of the Republic. But the Attorney General is telling us that he did not enter nolle prosequi for Mr. Jakpa, who is also being prosecuted one way or the other for something, because Jakpa's lawyer, Mr. Chikata, is sure that he wants to soldier on. That's what he told the press. I don't know whether the press were worried about that, but viewers, we got to be very worried. The Attorney General says that I was going to enter nolle prosequi, but Chachu Chikata says I shouldn't. He says he will go on with the case, so I left it. Is that the republic we are running? Article 88, when they were writing it, they said that when you want to enter another prosecutor, please ask senior lawyer Chikata. What else is the Attorney General asking lawyer Chikata? What else? If the Attorney General is deciding on Mr. Chikata's opinion, whether or not to enter Nole prosecutor in the matter that he's in, and the Attorney General tells us that in all of those cases he engaged with the lawyers, what was he engaging with them about? We want our Attorney General to come and enter Nole prosecutor and say that, pursuant to the power granted me under Article 88 of the Constitution, and in consultation with His Excellency the President, I have decided this day to enter Nole prosecutor in the following cases: the Republic versus Jakpa, the Republic versus that, the Republic versus that. I am now willing to take questions on some of the reasons that I'm able to disclose to you. And so let's take the questions now. Then they come and say, why do you do that? You can do some legal analysis and all that. But if you come and tell us that, oh, in the case of Jakpa, you know, I spoke to Mr. Chikata, and he told me that he wants to soldier on. That's how the Attorney General works. And please, the text messages from what we've been doing on the Attorney General, and then we'll come back and deal with the 10 minutes left of that, 11 o'clock. Good evening again. Thank you very much for staying with us. Things are getting tightened up, isn't it? Tighten up. Okay. Shall I start with Fatih again? All right, Anzaba, what are people saying?
Thank you very much, Paul. From Felix, he said, this Attorney General must be a confused man. He seems to be overwhelmed by the office he's occupying. Such a flimsy excuse and opinion. I'm very sad for Ghana. From Barnabas, he says, detailing issues with facts, God bless you. Charles Osei says, Paul, the extensive knowledge and understanding has earned the admiration of many Ghanaians. Keep up the great work for Mother Ghana. From Gabriel, he says, but they were acquitted and discharged. Why the appeal? What did the recorded call say about the matter? Kwabna Bampong says, Apostle Paul, where is Dami? Yao February says the Attorney General said he has no explanation to we Ghanaians for withdrawing high-profile cases, but he and his governments know the reasons for dealing with the oral cases and Mr. Ofori Atta and co. We Ghanaians also expect the Attorney General to conceal the case against Mr. Ofori Atta. From Daniel, he says, a judge in his own court, Attorney General, resetting in progress. Akwesi Chambo says, Paul, since no one in government is prepared to own up to Richard Jakpa's presence in Ken Ofori Atta's home, can Ken sue Jakpa for unlawfully entering and taking his family hostage? Baba Arigariba says, Godfrey Dami should be dragged to the legal counsel. And lastly, from Nana Kwame, says, even John Mahama got away with the Airbus scandal. Over to you, Fatima.
All right, thank you, Ansiba. So, coming from Bafo, it says, it seems your tone towards Kissi Agyabeng has changed. It's understandable self-preservation, but you should condemn his fugitive statement in strong legal framework. When did you realize he can do some good work? We still have not heard from the inquiry into the cost of his bulletproof cars. Akwesi Champon says, since no one is in government and is prepared to own up to Richard Jakpa's presence in Ken Ofori Atta's home, can't Ken sue Jakpa for unlawful entry and hostage taking of Ken's family? Abdul Razak says, I'm pondering whether President Mahama is actually a clearing agent. As a young person living in our country, Ghana, I'm writing this with deep sense of sadness. It's hard for me to comprehend why the AG cleared all those facing trial without informing us as a country. It is necessary for us to demand accountability and answers from the AG. Most of them were facing trial because it resulted in a significant financial loss of the state. This was something that had to be pursued. It's imperative that the country's youth unite to combat this injustice against our country. The AG needs to provide a detailed explanation to Ghanaians as to why he clears most people accused of corruption and evil against the state. Assuming this clearing remains, I will urge the AG and the President to clear all the cases that are currently in court for violating laws. The law cannot consistently punish the poor while not punishing the world. This from Abdul Razak. Real Max B says, if indeed his clients were innocent, why didn't he allow the court to do so, but rather turn himself into a judge? God have mercy on Ghana. Francis Bahen says, Honorable Attorney General, if you believe that Honorable Attorney General Forsen is a victim, political which hands? Why not the case? Why not end the case? If Honorable Atto-Forson is discharged, then Ghanaians can authenticate that truly Honorable Atto-Forson is vindicated. Now, lastly, coming from Yao Febri, says the AG said he has no explanation to we Ghanaians for withdrawing high-profile cases, but he and his government knows the reasons for dealing with the oral cases. And Mr. Ofori Atta, we Ghanaians also expect the AG to conceal the case against Mr. Ofori Atta. How about?